Casey, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Casey.
Happy New Year, GE.
Happy New Year. It's 2019, and we are starting it off right with Bible learning.
I know, and this is a great one, too, because there's all kinds of slaughter and rape and pillage and burning shit and, like, all kinds of awesome biblical stuff to start out the brand new year.
I know. We're going to start out this new year raping bitches.
Yeah, it's crazy. We should
Are you ready to figure out what we're going to learn today?
Yeah.
We're going to learn some really great stuff.
I'm really nervous about this one.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to war with the Benjamins. I'm talking about dollar bills.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to make it rain all over the Middle East in this particular fashion. Just $100 bills everywhere. Because there's no ruler or king at this time.
Okay.
So everybody's doing crazy shit in the land.
Okay.
Just whatever they fucking want all the time, whenever. It's like
Purge style?
Purge style, Las Vegas, never sleeps kind of shit. Okay.
Awesome.
But this one Levite had this wife who was a really big bitch. Okay. And so she left to be with her dad again. And so the husband brings his side bitch along for some reason, but goes and tries to convince his wife. I don't know about you, but I can't imagine convincing your wife to come back with you while the side bitch is right there with you. It's like, come on, baby. I mean, she's just a side bitch.
I promise I'll change. Oh, don't mind her. She means nothing.
We're going to find out that's quite literal. So anyways, the husband, after a few minutes of trying, just like, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to take my side bitch and go on with my life. And so he travels a little bit and he gets to this shit Gibeon place. I mean, we're just going to call it the town shit Gibeon.
Okay. Which is a town of the Benjamites.
Right, the Benjis.
Yeah.
And then this old guy offers his place, and basically it's a retool of the whole Lot story. This old guy offers his place, and then as always, whenever you're visiting a town, a mob of unruly gay guys comes up and is like, "Hey, we want to rape this guy till he dies." And then the old man's like, "No." Here, but have my virgin daughter and this asshole's concubine. And so basically they throw the virgin daughter and the concubine out there and they rape the concubine to death. When the Levite, though, finds that the concubine, his side bitch, has been raped to death, he decides to go all Dexter on the corpse's ass and cuts her up into 12 pieces. And then I guess pins a note to him because he sends them to all of his brothers and whatnot in the 12 tribes. Because, you know, that's how you get a message across. You cut a bitch up. And then apparently he was so appalled he forgot to be appalled by this because he riled people up into a great mass of like a big gang, and they were going to attack the Benjis, in which God actually sends Judah out first. But obviously a shitload of Israelites have to die. But through all the rigmarole, the Israelites end up killing men, women, and children. So just imagine these people stabbing a 5-year-old in the face. That's what's happening here. This is God's people stabbing 5-year-olds in faces.
They're actually also God's people because they're Benjamites.
Right. So it's God's people killing God's people, which is pretty much the summary of every war ever.
Right.
And then they decide, after they kill all of these Benjamites and devastate the Benjamites and whatnot, they go and kill different people to steal women for the Benjamites that they just slaughtered.
Well, not the ones they slaughtered, the ones that were left.
Well, I meant the people group. They just slaughtered the people group.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
And so they brought women over. But that wasn't enough. So what'd they do? They got in their white panel vans and they drove out and they stole some little girls as they were playing in the playground. So this is God's plan, guys. God's plan is to steal little girls and virgins for the people that he just slaughtered. Not the literal people that he just slaughtered, because that would be some weird kind of crazy, like,
because the rest of this is not weird and crazy.
Yeah, right. I know. And yeah, that's pretty much where we ended today. Shut your books. That is what we learned. God has white panel vans that he sends the Israelites out to steal your daughters.
Well, so you actually didn't do too bad today, except for, like, it wasn't God's plan to go kidnap the what?
Oh, so I got the white panel vans right. Awesome.
The
Way
vans,
to go.
you didn't get the vans right. It wasn't God, but it wasn't God's plan. It was the Israelites who felt bad for the rest of the Benjamites that were living. There were only, out of all of the Benjamites, which there were tens of thousands, maybe 100,000s, or hundreds of thousands that they killed. They felt bad for this last group that was left of 600 and just men.
Oh, so
they came up with this cockamamie plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, God.
But the whole slaughtering everybody, that was totally God's deal.
But hey, you know what? God is good all the time, and all the time,
God is good.
obviously. What's up, heathens?
How y'all doing?
All right, so today we're gonna go over in more detail what we kind of went over in the very beginning here. If you're still left after that horrible rendition of our Bible study today, well, welcome.
Well, what I'm gonna read is actually worse. So stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. So we're going to be going over what's actually in the Bible. This is legit. And today is a very interesting read because, like, in the commentaries that I have that I've done my research with as far as how Christians teach this stuff, this is the part of the Bible that they don't even want to exist. Like, they want you to totally ignore portions of this.
I mean, the commentaries say don't read the rest. Like,
yeah, don't read the rest.
Don't read this.
And another part, it's like, well, the translator, he left it in Latin so that only people that were taught how to read Latin could actually read this part.
Yes, when it was originally translated from Hebrew to English, they didn't want to translate it, and the guy who was translating it didn't want to translate it, so he put it in Latin so that only the educated could read it.
Right. Because it's fucking horrible.
It's awful.
But these are God's people, guys.
Yeah. But I think what's interesting is that this whole thing, and for everybody, so let's get everybody calibrated to what we're doing. We're doing Judges chapter 19, 20, and 21, which is the rest of Judges. Today, we're going to finish it out.
Yay, finally. Done with this fucking shit.
Yeah, and then we're going to move into Israel as a monarchy with Samuel.
Yep.
Okay, so we start out and end Judges with, at this time, Israel had no king. There was no ruler. You know, they lost Moses and Joseph. And they basically lost their leaders. Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua?
Well, Joshua was way back when, like, he was the king or whatnot, not king, but he was the guy right after Moses.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. That was Joshua.
That was Joshua
after Moses.
Right.
No, I said Joseph. That was my bad. I said the wrong name. So it was Joshua after Moses, and since Joshua, they haven't had anybody who is basically a direct messenger for God. They haven't had that direct connection. Well,
I'm wondering if in today's reading we'll find out, like, I think the emphasis in today's reading is that the Israelites didn't want to talk to God. Not that God didn't talk to them or didn't want to talk to them or whatnot, but I think the blame is being placed on the Israelites.
Well, of course the blame's being placed on the Israelites. The whole thing starts out with they didn't have a king, and basically they did whatever the fuck they wanted to.
Yeah.
They did not follow the rules as they were laid out by Moses, And they basically forgot where they came from, essentially. And that's the whole point of Judges, is to go through and say, well, they need a leader. And so God would bring them a leader to get them back on track, and they would fall off the path and get back on and fall off and get back on. And so it's been a cycle through the entire bit of Judges, and there's a lot of them, and a lot of time passes here, but they begin the end of Judges by saying, at this time, they had no king, there was no judge, and they were doing whatever the fuck they wanted. Mm-hmm. Okay. So are you ready?
My butthole is puckered, so I am ready.
Okay. So starting with Judges chapter 19.
All right. I'm taking notes, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Because, I always fuck up at the beginning. I gotta take notes now.
Oh, okay.
I actually take notes at the beginning to fuck up the beginning on purpose.
Yeah, I know, it's weird, but it's funny. Mm-hmm.
I try.
Okay. In those days, Israel had no king. Now, a Levite who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. But she was unfaithful to him. She left him and went back to her father's house in Bethlehem, Judah. Okay.
Oh, okay. So it was the concubine that was unfaithful.
Well, so it wasn't...
So the side, I always find it funny. It's like, oh, the side bitch the side bitch cheated on me. How the fuck could my side bitch cheat on me while I'm cheating on my wife with the side bitch?
Well, so he has more than one. So that's the thing, is like...
Concubines were considered lower than wives, so they didn't have all of the legal aspects of being a wife. So that's why they were deemed a concubine. So,
but it calls this woman's father his father-in-law.
Right.
So it refers to her family and him as the son-in-law. So it says took a concubine from Bethlehem. She was unfaithful. She left him and went back to her father's house. And it said after she had been there 4 months, her husband went to persuade her to return.
Right.
So they called her a concubine, but they're referring to the guy as her husband and him as a father-in-law. So I don't think she was a concubine.
Well, no. She was a concubine because for instance, so you can only have one wife, right? But you can have multiple concubines. And the concubines are given or belong to a man in which they are their husbands. It's a lot like with, what's that fuck's name? Jacob? Jacob, he's the one that got renamed to Israel. Mm-hmm. He had the one wife, and then he had the different concubines.
Well, right.
That were with him.
I fully understand that. But you would not refer to the concubine's family. Like, they wouldn't be your in-laws. There would not be that. You would not say, you wouldn't call the man the concubine's husband. It would be her master. So there's conflicting language here, because you would not refer to a concubine's father as your father-in-law. And they do that. And they refer to the concubines, they refer to the man as the concubine's father's son-in-law. And you wouldn't do that unless it was the wife. So that's why there's conflicting language here. Right.
Well, what I know as far as the commentary goes on this, from a Christian's point of view, is that the concubine is just a lower social status or a lower legal status than wife. So it's like considered just like a wife, just without all of the legal ramifications of it.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that's how they explain it or whatever. So anyways, go ahead.
Okay. Anyway. After she had been there for 4 months, her husband went to her to persuade her to return. He had with him his servant and 2 donkeys. She took him into her father's house, and when her father saw him, he gladly welcomed him. His father-in-law, the girl's father, prevailed upon him to stay, so he remained with him 3 days, eating and drinking and sleeping there. On the 4th day, they got up early, and he prepared to leave, but the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "Refresh yourself with something to eat, and then you can go." So the 2 of them sat down to eat and drink together. Afterward, the girl's father said, "Please stay tonight and enjoy yourself." And when the man got up to go, the father-in-law persuaded him, so he stayed there that night. On the morning of the 5th day, when he rose to go, the girl's father said, "Refresh yourself, wait till afternoon." So the 2 of them ate together. And then, when the man with his concubine and his servant got up to leave, his father-in-law, the girl's father, said, Now look, it's almost evening. Spend the night here, and the day is nearly over. Stay and enjoy yourself. Early tomorrow morning, you can get up and be on your way home. So he's continuing to like delay, and I'm not really sure why. But unwilling to stay another night, the man left and went toward Gibeah, which is also Jerusalem. Okay, so they went to Jerusalem with his 2 saddled donkeys and his concubine.
I don't know. I like the idea of it being just Gibeah. It's like, where are we going to go? We're going to go to Gibeah. Oh, I love being inside Gibeah.
When they were near Gibeah and the day was almost gone, the servant said to his master, "Come, let's stop at this city of the Jebusites and spend the night." His master replied, "No, we will not go into an alien city whose people are not Israelites. We will go on to Gibeah." He added, "Come, let's try to reach Gibeah or Ramah and spend the night in one of those places." So they went on, and the sun as they neared Gibeah in Benjamin. There they stopped to spend the night. They went and sat in the city square, but no one took them into their home for the night. That evening, an old man from the hill country of Ephraim who was living in Gibeah, the men of the place were Benjamites. They keep making sure you understand that these are Benjamites that live in Gibeah.
Right. So basically, you walked into the town center, you sat there, and you waited for somebody to be like,
offer
"Yo,
their home.
You want to come sleep on my couch?"
Yeah, kind of. That's how they make it sound. So this guy came in and from working the fields, and he looked and saw the traveler in the city square and asked, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" He answered, "We're on our way from Bethlehem in Judah to a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim where I live. I have been to Bethlehem in Judah, and now I am going to the house of the Lord. No one has taken me into his house. We both have straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for ourselves, your servants, me, your maidservant, and the young man with us. We don't need anything." So the old guy says, "You're welcome in my house. Let me supply you whatever you need. Only don't spend the night here in the square." So he took them into his house and fed his donkeys. After they'd washed their feet, they had something to eat and drink. All right. Now here's where it gets crazy.
Uh-oh, crazy shit's happening.
We had to set the scene.
Okay.
You ready?
It was a dark, stormy night.
While they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house.
Oh, that should be read gay, by the way.
They don't have to be gay.
No, they don't have to be gay, but, I mean, it's the Bible.
Pounding on the door, they shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him."
See, how many times, I can't count the number of times on one single hand, a mob of angry gay guys has been like, "Get that GE ass out here right now. I need it."
Yeah, that's never happened.
That's why I can't count it on my hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's rather ridiculous, like a group of men, regardless of orientation, come and knocking on the door like, "We want to rape his ass."
Or her. Or just like, who surrounds a home and bangs on the door and we're like, "We saw you have out-of-town guests. Bring them out so I can fuck them." Like, that's so, it's just so weird.
And then you look over at your father-in-law and it's like, "Well, I don't know. Do you want to go out?"
It's just a really fucking bizarre thing. And this is not the first time this has happened in the Bible,
no,
right?
No.
This happened with Lot and the angels. So here we go. The owner of the house went outside and said to them, "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this disgraceful thing. Look, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But to this man, don't do such a disgraceful thing."
Have respect for the man. Fucking use them all you want to.
Yeah.
Have respect for the men, will you?
Well, and he's going to give them his virgin daughter, who then will not be able to marry anyone else. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the men would not listen to him. So the man took his concubine and sent her outside to them. And they raped her and abused her throughout the night. And at dawn, they let her go.
Yeah, so this is the part, like this entire part right here, the commentary and other commentaries have said, just don't even read it. Yeah. I mean, Christians literally do not want this particular section to even exist. Like, they don't want people to know about it. They don't want people to read it. They just want to know, listen, horrible shit happened. That's all you got to know.
Yeah, but it was like, stuff like that happened at the time. We can't judge that time by today's standards.
No. And also, God is good all the time. So obviously this Levite was just doing what God wanted, right?
This is horrible. Yeah. And the Levites were the priests. Yeah.
I mean, you would think the priest would know what God wanted. It's like, oh, well, I definitely know my shit. Here, take this bitch.
So
I got 3 more at home.
It's terrible. So at daybreak, the woman went back to the house where her master was staying. She fell down at the door and lay there until daylight. When her master got up in the morning and opened the door of the house and stepped out to continue on his way, there lay his concubine, fallen in the doorway of the house, with her hands on the threshold. He said to her, "Get up, let's go."
Jesus Christ, man. You fucking fed her to the wolves, and now you're just like, get up, you fucking lazy bum.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, he's such a loving husband, master? I don't know at this point.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Guy.
Asshole.
Yeah. But there was no answer. Then the man put her on his donkey and set out for home. When he reached home, he took a knife and cut her up limb by limb into 12 parts and sent them into all the areas of Israel, to all the tribes.
Somebody's been masturbating to the show Dexter.
Everyone who saw it said, "Such a thing has never been seen or done, not since the day the Israelites came out of Egypt. Think about it. Consider it. Tell us what to do." So,
It's like he cut him up, sent him everywhere, and he's like, think about this. Consider it, bitches.
Well, yeah, he wants people to know what happened.
Right.
And all the Israelites from all the tribes except for Benjamin meet to decide what to do. Mm-hmm. Right. So let's see. All the Israelites from Dan to Beersheba and from the land of Gilead came out as one man and assembled before the Lord in Mizpah. The leaders of all the people of all the tribes of Israel took their place at the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 soldiers armed with swords. The Benjamites heard that the Israelites had gone up to Mizpah. Then the Israelites said, "Tell us how this awful thing happened." So the Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, said, "I and my concubine came to Gibeah in Benjamin to spend the night. During the night, the men of Gibeah came after me and surrounded the house, intending to kill me. They raped my concubine and she died. I took my concubine, cut her into pieces, and sent one piece to each region of Israel's inheritance because they committed this lewd and disgraceful act in Israel. Now all you Israelites, speak up and give your verdict."
In the commentary, they, of course, say that this is a very self-serving way for the Levite to describe the events, because he didn't say, well, I gave up my concubine.
Yeah.
But it never directly says that this was, like, a bad way to, like, recount the events or anything. Like,
perhaps you should not give up your virgin daughters and your wives and your concubines or whatever to men who are wanting to rape something.
Yeah. That's just kind of a general public service announcement. Don't give your daughters up and concubines to be raped. That's not good.
It seems like that's something that does not need to be said.
You would think, but I mean, it's
Here we are.
2019.
So all the people rose as one man, saying, "None of us will go home. No, not one of us will return to his house. But now this is what we'll do to Gibeah. We will go up against it as the lot directs. We will take 10 men out of every 100 from all the tribes of Israel, and 100 from 1,000, and 1,000 from 10,000 to get provisions for the army. Then, when the army arrives at Gibeah in Benjamin, it can give them what they deserve for all the vileness done in Israel." So all the men of Israel got together and united as one man against the city. The tribes of Israel sent men throughout the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What about this awful crime that was committed among you? Now surrender those wicked men of Gibeah, so that we may put them to death and purge the evil from Israel." But the Benjamites would not listen to their fellow Israelites. From their towns they came together at Gibeah to fight against the Israelites. At once, the Benjamites mobilized 26,000 swordsmen from their towns, in addition to 700 chosen men from those living in Gibeah. Among all these soldiers, there were 700 chosen men who were left-handed, each of whom could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. I don't know why this is important. It seems like a weird thing. Who cares?
They're ultra accurate rock throwers. He can knock the nuts off of a muskrat from 100 parsecs away.
So Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 swordsmen, all of them fighting men. The Israelites went up to Bethel and inquired of God. They said, "Who of us shall go first to fight against the Benjamites?" The Lord replied, "Judah shall go first." The next morning the Israelites got up and pitched camp near Gibeah. The men of Israel went out to fight the Benjamites and took up battle positions against them at Gibeah. The Benjamites came out of Gibeah and cut down 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. But the men of Israel encouraged one another and again took up their positions where they had stationed themselves the first day. The Israelites went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and they inquired of the Lord. They said, "Shall we go up again to battle against the Benjamites, our brothers?" The Lord answered, "Go up against them."
Jeez. I mean, so he's like, yeah, sure, go on ahead and go up against them. And, they get 22,000 people killed. Then they come back, "Are you sure, God?" And he's like, "I'm having fun. Are you having fun? Why don't you go and give it another shot there, motherfucker?"
I'm entertained, right? Then the Israelites drew near to Benjamin the second day. This time, when the Benjamites came out of Gibeah to oppose them, they cut down another 18,000 Israelites, all of them armed with swords. Then the Israelites, all the people, went up to Bethel, and there they sat weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening, and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord. In those days, the ark of the covenant of God was there with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, ministering before it. They asked, "Shall we go up again to battle with Benjamin, our brother, or not?"
I just imagine like a guy behind a curtain operating like, I don't know, some kind of like primitive machinery. And it's just got like not like a microphone, but like one of those cheap megaphones or whatnot back there. And he's like, "Yes, you should fight the Benjamites." And it's like got a whole bunch of smoke that's billowing out. And it's like, see, it's the Lord. It's a column of smoke.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Like the Wizard of Oz.
Like the Wizard of Oz, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the Lord responded, "Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands."
Ooh. Third time's a charm, people. Always remember that. In the Bible, third time is the charm.
Yeah. So then Israel set an ambush around Gibeah. They went up against the Benjamites on the third day and took up positions against Gibeah as they had done before. The Benjamites came out to meet them and were drawn away from the city. They began to inflict casualties on the Israelites as before, so that about 30 men fell in the open field and on the roads, and one leading to Bethel and the other to Gibeah. While the Benjamites were saying, "We're defeating them as before," after 30 men. That's what I don't understand. Like the days before they killed 25,000 and 18,000, or 22,000 and then 18,000. And now they've killed 30 and they're like, "We're defeating them." I don't know. I don't understand.
They just killed 30 men?
Yeah.
Like that seems to be counting your eggs before they hatch, don't you think?
Yeah, I know. It's really weird.
And the deaths prior to that, you know what they add up to?
What?
40,000.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the Israelites were saying after the 30 men, right? The Benjamites are saying, "We're defeating them." And the Israelites are saying, "Let's retreat and draw them away from the city to the roads." All the men of Israel moved from their places and took up positions at Baal Tamar. And the Israelite ambush charged out of its place in the west of Gibeah. Then 10,000 of Israel's finest men made a frontal attack on Gibeah. The fighting was so heavy that the Benjamites did not realize how near disaster was. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and on that day the Israelites struck down 25,100 Benjamites, all armed with swords. that the Benjamites saw that they were beaten. Okay. Now the men of Israel had given way before Benjamin. Because they relied on the ambush they had sent near Gibeah. The men who had been in ambush made a sudden dash into Gibeah, spread out, and put the whole city to the sword. The men of Israel had arranged with the ambush so that they should send up a great cloud of smoke from the city, and then the men of Israel would turn in the battle. The Benjamites had begun to inflict casualties on the men of Israel, about 30, and they said, "We are defeating them as in the first battle." But when the column of smoke began to rise from the city, the Benjamites turned and saw the smoke of the whole city going up into the sky. Then the men of Israel turned on them, and the men of Benjamin were terrified, because they realized that disaster had come upon them. So they fled before the Israelites in the direction of the desert, but they could not escape the battle, and the men of Israel who came out of the towns cut them down there. They surrounded the Benjamites, chased them, and easily overran them in the vicinity of Gibeah on the east. 18,000 Benjamites fell, all of them valiant fighters. And they turned and fled toward the desert to the rock of Rimmon, and the Israelites cut down 5,000 men along the roads. They kept pressing after the Benjamites as far as Gibeah, struck down 2,000 more. On that day, 25,000 Benjamite swordsmen fell, and all of them valiant fighters. Okay.
Well, so they fucked them up, huh?
Mm-hmm. But, you ready?
Uh-oh. There's a but. There's always a but.
600 men turned and fled into the desert to the rock of Rimmon, where they stayed for 4 months. The men of Israel went back to Benjamin and put all the towns to sword, including all the animals and everything else they found. All the towns they came across they set on fire.
Oh, wow. So this is where the baby killing comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
The baby, kid, and women killing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did that. So the men of Israel had taken an oath at Mizpah when they first heard about what the Benjamites had done. They took an oath at Mizpah. Not one of them will give his daughter in marriage to a Benjamite.
Fuck them Benjamites.
The people went to Bethel, where they sat before God until evening, raising their voices and weeping bitterly. "O Lord, the God of Israel," they cried, "why has this happened to Israel? Why should one tribe be missing from Israel today?" Early the next day, the people built an altar and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then the Israelites asked, "Who from all the tribes of Israel has failed to assemble before the Lord?" For they had taken a solemn oath that anyone who failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah should certainly be put to death. Now the Israelites grieved for their brothers the Benjamins. "Today, one tribe is cut off from Israel," they said. "How can we provide wives for those who are left, since we have taken an oath by the Lord not to give any of them our daughters in marriage?" So there are 600 men left, no women, and they're concerned because there's an entire tribe of Israel that's missing from the nation of Israel.
Well, right, but why should they care? I mean...
I don't know, but they do.
Okay.
They do. They care. They feel like there's something missing from them because one of their tribes is gone.
It's like one of my testicles. It just doesn't feel right.
So then they asked, which one of the tribes of Israel failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah? So, who didn't come to that meeting? They discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead had come to the camp for the assembly. For when they counted the people, they found that none of the people of Jabesh Gilead were there. So the assembly sent 12,000 fighting men with instructions to go to Jabesh Gilead and to put the sword to those living there, including the women and children. "This is what you are to do," they said. "Kill every male and every woman who is not a virgin." They found among the people living in Jabesh Gilead 400 young women who had never slept with a man, and they took them to the camp at Shiloh in Canaan.
So it's who didn't come here for this meeting? Who didn't make the fucking meeting? It's like, well, the Gilead fucks didn't get here. It's like, oh, okay then. Fucking go kill them all, even their little girls and all the women. Well, okay, all the women that have seen and touched dick. I mean, we want to keep the ones that haven't touched dick yet.
Yes. But all the little boys, everybody, they killed everyone except for these 400 virgin girls.
Women. Yeah. Girls.
Yeah. So then the whole assembly sent an offer of peace to the Benjamites at the rock of Rimmon. So the Benjamites returned at that time and were given the women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared. But there were not enough for all of them. Because remember, there were 600 men and there are 400 women.
Well, yeah, and you got to account for concubines too now. So that's got to be, I mean.
Well, we can't get picky. They need somebody to reproduce with is the point.
Okay, so they just need somewhere to put their dicks.
Yeah.
I mean, they have goats.
Well, they need to reproduce. The point is to not let the tribe of Benjamin die out.
I know.
They can't reproduce
with a goat fucker comment.
I know, but they can't reproduce with a goat.
You know what? I'm sure they tried like hell to, though.
They might have. I don't know. So the people grieved for Benjamin because the Lord made a gap in the tribes of Israel. All right?
Like, a gap. Like the front teeth of somebody, some hillbilly, I guess.
Like one of them is missing. Like one of the tribes is missing.
A whole tooth could be missing in one of those gaps.
Anyway, the elders of the assembly said, "With the women of Benjamin destroyed, how shall we provide wives for the men who are left? The Benjamite survivors must have heirs," they said, "so that a tribe of Israel will not be wiped out. We can't give them our daughters as wives, since we Israelites have taken this oath. Cursed be anyone who gives a wife to a Benjamite. But look, there is an annual festival of the Lord in Shiloh, to the north of Bethel, and east of the road that goes to Bethel to Shechem, and to the south of Lebonah." All right? So they instructed the Benjamites, saying, "Go and hide in the vineyards and watch. When the girls of Shiloh come out to join in the dancing, then rush from the vineyards, and each of you seize a wife from the girls of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. When their fathers or brothers complain to us, we will say to them, 'Do us a kindness by helping them, because we did not get wives for them during the war, and you are innocent, and since you did not give your daughters to them.'" Like, they're innocent since they didn't actually give their daughters. They were taken. All right? So that is what the Benjamites did. While the girls were dancing, each man caught one and carried her off to be his wife. Then they returned to their inheritance and rebuilt their towns and settled in them. At that time, the Israelites left that place and went home to their tribes and clans, each to his own inheritance.
Good old kidnapping in the Bible.
Yeah. And the final verse in Judges is, "In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as he saw fit."
Yeah, which is a perfect example of that. Stealing girls as they play in the field.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the end of Judges. As horrible as it is.
Yeah.
Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, that was pretty. This one probably was the worst of everything, like, one day combined. Like, there's been a lot of shitty shit that's happened so far. But it's been broken up, throughout. This was a lot. This was a lot to take in one. And I still don't understand the moral of this whole thing. Usually there's a moral, but I don't get it here. I don't get what there is to learn from this.
Well, as with other sections of Judges, there's nothing new to learn with this. This is still all just about what happens when you don't acknowledge God, or when you don't, when God isn't at the forefront of everybody's mind. Which I know that in there they directly talk to God and ask him, should we fight the Benjamites and everything like that. But that's after the fact. Like, nobody consulted God when, people were asking to rape the guy and the guy gave his concubine and whatnot for them to rape. Like, nobody consulted God then, but it's only later when God's trying to equal shit out.
Yeah.
Equalize the shit. So I think that the moral of the story is that without God, just horrible shit happens.
Yeah.
And I mean,
kind of horrible shit happens with God too. I mean,
directly because of God, because it was directly because of God that the Israelites went in and killed all the women that have touched dick and the little boys and all the men. Like, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, God didn't tell them to do the plan. Like, God, again, the plan to go to that town and the Gilead and kill all those people, that wasn't God's plan. God had nothing to do with any of that.
No. I didn't talk about. I was talking about the Benjamites because I'm assuming because if I remember correctly, they went in and they killed like everything. Like they said.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, from what they say in the book, God just told them go up against them, and then the Israelites did what a lot of Christians apologists would say, well, that's how war was fought in the day. So it wasn't necessarily God said, go kill all the women or go kill all the little boys. It was go up against them, fight them for what they did.
Well, yeah, true. But it's already been established in the Bible that going up against them or fighting a foe or whatnot means to utterly destroy everything in there, specifically like the men, women, and children and all that other stuff, which, I mean... I feel like that's kind of been established in the Bible. That's how just how things were. I mean, that's how battles were fought then, because and they've made a point to say this in the Bible, is that you definitely don't want to leave like the sons, like the young boys, because they'll come back and try to avenge their father's deaths. And so you don't want to leave them because they might come back. Like you don't want to take them in because they will fight against you later in life. So I mean, that's kind of like that's a common thing that's just how they did. That's just how they did it. At least in this book right here. Yeah, in the Bible.
In the Bible stories, that's how.
That's what we're talking about, is that the Bible has already established this kind of how they fight war and stuff.
Yeah, so next week we're going to move into Samuel.
Samuel!
And I don't know if you know this, but Samuel is the final judge.
Oh, he's the final judge?
Mm-hmm. Yep. He's the last of Israel's judges. And he's a prophet.
I thought Samson was the last judge.
He was the last judge in Judges.
Oh, okay.
Samuel
is the ultimately final judge.
The final judge. And he is a prophet.
Oh, prophet and a judge. Damn.
And he anoints Israel's first king. And basically, the Samuel story, we're moving into a period of monarchy. A monarchy is going to be established in Israel.
Oh, this is going to be interesting because this has a lot of connotation, or a lot of, I guess, foreshadowing for the New Testament. Well,
and this is actually the period of the monarchy where they're going to move from a theocracy into a monarchy. It's going to last for 465 years. It's a 465-year period of kings, and it's going to be basically First and Second Samuel, First and Second Kings, and First and Second Chronicles.
Okay. Well, I mean, isn't this more of like a theocratic monarchy?
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll get into all of that.
Okay. All right. Well, heathens, we appreciate you guys joining us today. If you want to take part in the special Skeptic Mafia pre-show where we kind of, talk about how we're going to approach the Bible study and everything like that, you can join right here on the YouTube channel by hitting that join link or by going to Patreon and pledging even as little as $1. And you can get those. So I hope that you will consider doing that. And we're excited to start this new year off on a great start, I guess. You're like, great is not the word.
This was the worst. This one was really bad.
Yeah. But, we're going to be moving on into hopefully better portions of the Bible, but there's not really any better portions of the Bible. There's just less bloody and rapey portions of the Bible.
Perhaps.
But anyways, heathens, I hope that you'll join us next week when we go through Samuel, or we start Samuel.
Yep.
And
don't forget to stand up and use your voice.
Bye, heathens.
Bye, y'all.